And the Oregon City Library Board for April will come to order at 5:03 p.m. In attendance are Ken Hall, Larry Osborne, Cynthia Andrews, Scott Edwards, Carrie Linder, and Nick Berkman, and library staff Maureen Cole and Denise Butcher. Our first item of business is approval of the minutes from last month. You should have received these sometime last week and had a chance to look over them. Are there any corrections or additions?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed, say no. All right, we'll move on to the next item of business, public comments. And I don't see anyone, unfortunately.
I'm gonna do great. I count.
And then we'll move on to the next item, number 4. And this month, we have another special presentation.
Yeah.
And I will throw it to Mo.
Great. Well, good evening, Library Board. I am very pleased to introduce you tonight to Gina Bacon, our favorite adult services librarian. And she's going to tell you all about all the hard work she does in that department to keep everything running smoothly, looking beautiful, and having amazing programs. So I am going to put your slideshow on from the beginning. Gina, why don't you join us there?
All right, and this is the button, yes?
Yeah.
Oh, it's like a
You
TED
can-
Talk.
I know.
Fancy.
Yeah, hopefully it'll work. And just make sure when you sit down
Yeah.
that one of the lights is on one of the microphones.
Oh, okay,
Like-
so I'm like talking to them.
Yeah, you,
like
yeah,
a hearing.
yeah, I know, sorry.
No, that's okay. I was gonna stand, but this is much more comfortable.
Yeah.
So again, I'm Gina Bacon. I want to also apologize. I'm pretty congested. I've been sick and I'm sucking on a cough drop. So trust me, I would have dry mouth instantly if I wasn't sucking on this thing. So I apologize. So yes, I'm here to talk to you today about adult services. I thought the most useful way to talk about it with you guys would be breaking it down into a couple of different areas. The first of which is going to be our collections. The second is our programming, and the third is discussing reference and beyond, as I like to call it. So,
Just time out for a second.
Yeah.
Can you see that in front of you? Everybody?
Oh,
Okay.
good.
Okay, great, thanks.
oh, that
So they've got it right on the
that's
screen.
one. I'm just constantly in shock of how organized this is. This is great. All right.
We are too.
So jumping right into it, the first thing that you'll see is this is all of the collections that are considered in the adult service area. There's a lot of different things going on. There's a couple that I wanted to draw attention to. The first of which is our graphic novels. So before I started, we didn't have a graphic novels collection. And we started one, and now we have the highest circulating graphic novels collection in the county. Yay. So we're very happy and proud about that. The other collection that we have added that no one else in Clackamas County actually has is our zine collections. And zines are kind of a unique item. They're do-it-yourself sort of publications that are generally made by just normal people who either, publish their poetry, their artwork, their fan work. And how it's developed over time, it kind of started in the 70s and 80s with kind of a do-it-yourself ethic. How it's developed, though, is a lot of the time marginalized communities are using zines to publish information, to share, and also share their experiences. So you'll find a lot of our zines are about mental illness, about transgender, about being on the spectrum. I mean, they're kind of all over the place. So they're really cool and they're really great to browse. So we're very happy about having that collection as well. The other one that we have that no one else in Clackamas County has is our book bundles. So our book bundles are great because we enable people to conduct book groups very easily by having bundles with the same book, about 10 books in each bundle. And when you check it out, you get it for about 60 days. So it's much longer. So this enables different institutions or individuals to have book groups and encourage that kind of community activity. So we get a lot of requests for more of them, but since we're the only one in the county, there's only so much we can do, but we're really proud of the ones we have. We have a pretty extensive collection of those as well. And then the last thing that I just want to draw attention to is something that's on the horizon, which Erin is actually working more on than anyone else, but we're super excited about it. It's a library of things. If you are familiar with Hillsborough or Washington County's Library of Things, essentially what this is going to be are items that patrons can check out, different like media items. So one example would be like a VHS to CD converter. So things that people wouldn't necessarily purchase for themselves, but would really like appreciate using, or maybe things that they're not sure about purchasing, but might want to try out first. So that can include things like camping gear, binoculars, like a microscope, just basically things that people can use, things they can use to learn and explore and grow. So that's sort of an overview of the collections. To give perspective too, one of the things that we struggle with when we first opened, that I struggle with when we first opened at least, was we had this beautiful new building, all these beautiful shelves, and not a ton of beautiful books to fill on the shelves. And that was probably one of the number one comment I would get when we first opened, and it was something that I knew all the reasons why we didn't have a lot of books, but that was hard to communicate sometimes to the community who didn't understand what was going on behind the scenes. So one thing that I want to draw attention to is how many books we've added since then. We've added about 20,000 items, which is really great, and we're continuing to grow our collections, which is wonderful. And what I want to show you next is kind of a reflection of how that's playing out on a county-wide level. So I'm going to show you a series of graphs that show you how Oregon City is comparing to the rest of the county. Obviously, Oregon City is the green one. And right now, which is wonderful, we are, at least, so, sorry, perspective on this. Every month we get circulation statistics from the county about how we're kind of performing on a county-wide level. This is from February, because when I made this, that was the most recent one that I had access to. So this is February, and it changes and fluctuates, but it kind of just gives you a general idea of what we're dealing with. But in February, although Milwaukee's right behind us, we were the third highest circulating library in Clackamas County, which is really great considering how small our collection actually is compared to others. And a couple of others, so this is just all adult circulating material. This is fiction and nonfiction. So this is kind of the big boys as far as our book collections go. And you can see that we're kind of floating along Milwaukee, Westland, Wilsonville, and Happy Valley. So we're holding our own in the county in fiction and nonfiction, but we're going to see that continue to grow as we keep adding stuff. And we discovered we have a little more money from our opening day collection, which was very, very generously given to us by our foundation, which enabled us to buy so many books. So that's just going to continue to go up, I think, as we buy more books. And one of the good things about having no books and ordering a bunch of new ones is that we have the highest quality books and the newest books that are published on certain topics like graphic design and things that are in high demand. I think that's what drives some of the high circ rates, would be the fact that we have some of the most recent books on certain topics that are definitely sensitive to time. So some of the other ones, graphic novels, again, I'm so proud of this one because it is something that we started while I was here, and it's doing so well. It's growing. We're going to have to do some creative moving around of collections because it's growing so quickly, which I credit to Jen, who does the ordering for that. She's a library assistant, and she's doing a wonderful job ordering for that. Audiobooks, we also have the highest circulation of audiobooks in the county. I think that's pretty great. That's Denise. Thank you, Denise, the AV whiz over there. Some other collections, oh God, let me just eat this microphone. Other collections that we have that are just of interest. February wasn't the month, but usually we're the highest circulating large print, which is pretty cool and kind of random. We are phenomenal on video games. If you look at that one, we are way above anyone else on video games. Thank you again, Denise. DVDs, we're about third. We're very strong with our DVD circulation, and our music is fair. It's like fourth. So I just wanted to share that with you to give you some context in terms of how we perform in the county and what that looks like. One thing that we've also added to our collections recently, so if you've been in the library, you probably know our fiction is organized by the author's last name. And one of the sort of, I guess, disadvantages of doing that is that it makes it difficult to browse by genre, which often a lot of patrons want to come in and they're like, where's your Westerns? You know, where's your mystery books? Ultimately, I don't think that's the best way to organize the books, but what we did is we added these spine label stickers to all of the books that kind of would be classified as genres, and it makes it a lot easier for you to browse. So when you walk through the aisles, you'll be able to kind of see from the spine labels different genre books. And we just added another one, which is historical fiction, which has a nice little Oregon Trail wagon on there. So if you ever go in and you're looking for something, and maybe you just want a genre book, this will be a lot more helpful. So that was also just based on feedback we've gotten from patrons about that. So we wanted to make sure that we addressed it in a way that didn't require us moving our collection entirely around. This last slide is just sort of some photos of some of the displays that we do upstairs. I really love our displays. I think they're really important in terms of marketing the library and presenting our best face and presenting a professional face. And also for Reader's Advisory, putting books in the hands of people that maybe they wouldn't have been aware of before. So some of the examples is like Explore Outdoors. We have National Poetry Month. We try to highlight different like heritage events every month, or if there's a holiday going on, like Blind Date with a Book, that was in February. We try to have fun with the displays and do a good job of promoting those. And that's also Jen and myself. I kind of oversee her. I'm very anal retentive about graphics, so Jen is such a good sport about me always putting my finger in that pie, but she does a wonderful job of that too. So, excuse me, moving on to programming. Up here, I have just basically every topic we've touched on through our programming in the last couple of years. You can see we run the gamut. You know, we're kind of all over the place with what we provide in terms of programming for adults. Last year, approximately, we had about 2,500 adults at our programming. So that's awesome, and we're really looking forward to increasing that number as we grow. This is just a list of community partners that we have worked with for programming. I just thought that this was kind of a great way to highlight how varied our partners are and kind of the variety of things that we're providing, a variety of programming that we're providing. And we work with some of these people just continually, others maybe like a one-off program. But that just gives you some idea of our different partners in the community, and we're still working on growing that as well. Reoccurring programming, so programming that we always have going on every month, or at least kind of semi-regularly, is our genealogy program once a month. We have a writing group that meets twice a month. We have a Dungeons and Dragons club that meets every Sunday. And we have a book group that meets about every other month. The first Film Friday series that Mo does, we do about 7 months out of the year.
About 9.
9 months out of the year, there you go. Coffee and coloring we do once a month. We have a craft every month, and we do an Oregon Humanity Conversation Project every spring. So those are some things that are reoccurring. Oh, and one that I don't have on here that we're starting to do reoccurring is trivia nights at the White Rabbit bookstore downtown. Which we just had one, and we have another one planned for May. So those are super fun. I get to be the quiz master, so you guys should totally come and I can quiz you. We can do some trivia. So something that also happens every year that's pretty much happening very soon, and we're all running around getting prepared for it, is adult summer reading. So I'm sure everyone's aware of children's summer reading, but adults get to do it as well. It starts June 1st through August 31st, and this year the theme is a universe of stories. And I had some notes, but let's see if I can wing this to remember everything. But essentially what happens when you sign up, you get a free tote bag, you get a bookmark, you get a bingo card, and you get reading slips to record your reading, and a word search. The word search and the bingo card, if you complete, you just get extra entry forms so that you can participate in different ways. And then the reading slips are the things that you would enter into our raffle. So one thing that we were really conscious of this year is making sure that we're inclusive and that all adults are able to participate and want to participate, because some adults with disabilities may be more attracted to the children's prizes and the children's programming, which the children's programming is for children. And so we want to make sure that we are very aware of how we are marketing our adult summer reading so that we're being inclusive. And so some of the changes that we've made this year, one, there are 3 grand prizes, which you'll see. They're gift baskets. Each one has a Kindle in it, as well as a book on the topic of the basket. So since the theme is Universe of Stories, we are giving away a little telescope, a celestron telescope, along with an astronomy book, Kindle, and some like little astronaut ice cream kind of stuff. We have a spa package that has a book on spa, making spa products, a Kindle again, and then some spa stuff. And then we have a food one, which is packed with food, the latest Mark Bittman book, and again, a Kindle. And then the fourth prize is actually, there will be 24 winners for this. It's the treasure chest, which is hopefully going to be more enticing for some people that maybe are not cognitively on the same level as some of our other adults. But what will happen is every week we'll draw two winners, and you'll get a book choice from our book cart, you'll get a $5 gift card to Dutch Brothers, and you'll get a pick from the treasure chest. And the treasure chest is filled with all kinds of little goodies. So there's coffee, there's little spa bombs, there's toys. So it's really meant to be appealing to anyone. There's little candy and chocolates in there. So that way, hopefully, things are maybe a little more enticing. And if you get a blackout bingo card, you get to choose from the treasure chest no matter what. So I encourage everyone to sign up for adult summer reading and get your hands in that treasure chest. We're really excited about this year. And this year we'll have a permanent display up where we keep our rotating one that's just going to be summer reading. That'll be highlighting some of these prizes. So we are very excited about summer reading, and that is just around the corner. A couple other things that around the corner are coming soon are a community reads project and the BAM Art Lab. So I'll start with BAM. BAM is Because Accessibility Matters. This is something that we, Jen, the library assistant, she took a course on adults with disabilities. And this is something that we've done because partly the Children's Art Lab had a lot of adults with disabilities attending. And it's not like they weren't welcome at all, but it was more of, this is kind of a space for kids and families. And so we wanted to create a space that adults could do the same types of arts and crafts, but in a space for adults that, respects the fact that they are adults. So we are doing BAM Art Lab, which is essentially the same kind of projects in Art Lab, but under the kind of, guise of this is for adults with disabilities, and it's especially for them. And Jen has been creating an advisory group with members of the community that work with adults with disabilities as well as caregivers. And she's already reached out to, I think, the Edwards group about making sure that they're able, and in scheduling our BAM Art Lab to ensure that these folks are able to come to it. So that's really awesome. We're really excited about that because Oregon City actually does have a lot of adults with disabilities. We've seen a lot of our patrons that do have that. So we want to make sure that we're providing programming for them that's appropriate for them and not making them do it with children when, they should have some space for themselves as well. And then the other project is a community reads project, which you might be familiar with. Like Lake Oswego does it, Multnomah County does it, Hillsboro's done it, and we're going to do it. And we're so excited about doing it. We're still kind of in a preliminary stage right now. I just communicated with some folks from CCC who are going to be partnering with on it. We have 2 final book selections, and I'm waiting for notes back from them because everyone has read both books. So that's just something to look forward to that will be coming along, and hopefully we'll be doing that every year. So another fun thing to look forward to. Reference and beyond. So upstairs at the reference desk, there's a lot of different things going on. One thing that's huge up there, in case you didn't know, is the conference and study room space. So our reference desk is responsible for booking all of the conference and study room space. They're also responsible for providing technology assistance on the spot. So any issues with ebooks, any printing issues, any minor computer issues, they're up there for that. There's also a little island that used to be the reference island that we use now to disseminate community information, and we do that based on feedback that we receive from our stakeholders during our strategic planning process. And so we listen to that, and we have a lot of different information, which there's a slide on, so we'll touch on that. I put printing on there because we get asked how to print all the time. If I had a nickel for every time someone asked for help with printing, I'd be a very rich woman, so I had to put that on there. It's not that important. But the other things are interlibrary loan. We do interlibrary loans at the library, and that means that we can get items from libraries outside of Clackamas County, and that's actually used fairly often. And then the last thing is obituaries. So we have microfilm of the Oregon City Courier, or a variation of that, going back to the 1850s, and occasionally we get requests. I just got one from the Netherlands, which is kind of cool, of people looking for obituaries from their relatives. So that's another thing that we get up there on the reference desk. And to give you perspective, in March, we had 61 reservations for the study room, 62 for the conference room, and 14 for our community room. And the community room, those 14 reservations are things not associated with the library. So that is community members coming in and using the space, not anything that we have anything to do with. So as you can see, it is a resource that was really needed in the community that we didn't have before, and it's just used nonstop. It's always surprising when there's not reservations booked throughout the day. And those numbers don't even reflect some of the walk-ups that people, if the room's not available, they might walk up and use it. So that's something that has been really wonderful in the new building and getting used a lot. Ebooks, technologies, and drop-ins, oh my. So we tried a variety of ways of approaching providing technology assistance. We've done classes, we've done one-on-ones, and right now we've landed on doing one-on-one appointments that are kind of divvied up between me, Jen, and Aaron. And what we want to work towards, because what we found is that really what people need when they need technology help is on-the-spot help. They don't want to come to a class, they don't necessarily want to do an appointment, they're in the library, they need to do a task on the computer, and they need help with it right then and there. And so we don't necessarily have the staffing for that, but what we want to work toward is getting volunteers that we can train and provide, very clear perimeters on what they do and don't do. But volunteers that can come and just kind of, hang out around the computer area and help with the very simple things like printing or like attaching a file to a document or downloading something, just kind of really basic things that take up a lot of the reference desk time. And that way we don't have to divide our attention so much and we can focus on other patrons that might have more in-depth research or reader's advisory questions. So that's something also coming down the pike. And then the Community Dissemination Center, which sounds really fancy. So what we've done is compiled a lot of different information that surrounds community, public services, civics, and then job and career information. So we'll, with community, we always have the trail news. We'll have different publications that come out about events, cultural events that are happening in the area, as well as some historical information too about Oregon City when it comes out. We also provide walking maps up there as well. Right now we have the tax forms in that area. The other things that we have really extensive information about like public housing, SNAP, child care assistance, different assistance for people that speak Spanish, healthcare information. We want this area of the library to be vetted in terms of the kind of information we're providing, because there is another area that the public can kind of leave their own stuff, leave brochures and things like that. And we don't want to clutter up, we want to be able to like separate, information that's vetted from the library versus just what community's kind of putting out there. So that's what this is about. And then lastly, the civics and the job and career. Those are like the driver manuals, voter registration cards, different information about like signing petitions, and then anything from WorkSource, anything that comes from the county in terms of career fairs or job information, we also put up there as well. And that is pretty much it. I try not to go on and on and on. I think I did this once and it was 20 minutes and I was like, ooh, I gotta wheel that in a little bit. So I didn't cover everything, but if you guys have any questions at all, I'd also be happy to field those.
When do signups begin for the adult summer reading?
Those will start June 1st.
Okay.
And you'll be able to do that in the library, I believe, at the computers where the catalogs are, and at the reference desk, that's where you'll pick up your tote bag.
Awesome.
Yeah, it should be good. Those prizes, I was wrapping them. I'm like, man, I wish I could participate in this, because these are gonna be, they're pretty fun prizes, so.
Great.
Yeah. Cool.
Other questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Can you give me an idea of what kind of things are borrowed through Interlibrary Loan? What typically people
Yes,
want?
I can. So often it's academic books, so books that we generally don't purchase in the county or even in Multnomah County. A lot of the times they're academic, not textbooks per se, but along those lines. It's actually really fascinating what people ask for. Another thing is like really random cozies. Like there's one lady that comes in, so cozy mysteries are kind of very
what a
kind of,
cozy is.
cutesy mysteries. So there's one gal that comes in and it's just a really obscure author that is just not really well known or published, and so you can't get it in the county. And so sometimes we'll get some of those like kind of one-offs of like, oh, this one person really wants this author. I don't want to buy these books, especially since often they're really old and they're not even in publication anymore, and so you'd have to like buy it used. So I mean, there's a reason. I try to always buy things as people request it, and I'm very sensitive to that, just from the whole shelves being empty thing where I'm like, I'll order whatever you want. What do you want from me? But things like that is, those aren't going to be things I'm going to order necessarily. If there's not a high demand, they're not in publication anymore, probably not going to order it. But the Interlibrary Loan exists, yeah.
Who do we see?
You see the reference desk. Yeah, if you have some obscure stuff. And often, not often, but sometimes with Interlibrary Loan, they might turn me on to something that we don't have in the library. That I'm like, oh, that's actually a topic that we don't cover. But you just gone up to the reference desk. You do have to do it in the library. You can call as well. It's just not available online to do from home. And that's because county actually handles all that. So we submit the request, and then county does all the busy work for us. And then they deliver it like a regular hold. Yeah.
Okay.
Other questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, hi, Nick. I know you.
How do you measure success with your programs?
Yeah, that's really tough because programming is really difficult to get bodies into the building often, especially with adults when a lot of adults have children. And so often it's a lot of kind of older adults that come to our programming. And I actually have tried to tailor some of the programming to reflect that, like having it earlier in the day when it's not dark so that we can get higher attendance. But really how I personally kind of judge if it's successful is the feedback that I get from people. It's like the notes that are written to me or just the face-to-face kind of feedback that I get from others. But attendance numbers help. It's always nice when people show up. But to me, I feel good about and successful when I get people talking to me and telling me that they had a good time or that it was a good experience.
So one thing Gina didn't mention, because she could go on forever, and
I
I
know.
could go on forever about her, because she's so wonderful.
Oh, go on.
Go on, she's listening.
How long is this meeting?
She and Denise are both doing the Next Leaders program through the Chamber of Commerce. And that's been good to expose both of them to just different groups in our community. Because, we kind of get in the library and we get busy, and it's hard for us to like reach out and know where we might be able to partner. So both of them have really done an excellent job with that program, and also using it as a way to get connected. And then sometimes we just serendipitously stumble upon like great partnerships too. So recently you stumbled into the workforce meeting or whatever. Right?
There's a Clackamas Workforce Council that meets, and I'm meeting with the guy tomorrow actually. And that is just, what was funny is that I go to the meeting and there was actually someone that I had been emailing with for like a year that I've never met in person. I was like, you're Amy. I'm like, wow, that was such a, and it's kind of happening more and more where we're finding these different councils or groups or, different things that we're participating in where dots are connecting as far as like, oh, you're that representative. And it's, I can't wait to go to another meeting with them just because that group is doing so much for the community, for work, but also for children as well. I'm really excited to continue to go to them. But yeah, I love the getting out in the community, and the longer that, I work here, the more that's happening.
Exactly.
Which is wonderful because those relationships are great. Like,
Right.
and everybody wants to work together always, it's just a
They
matter
do.
of connecting those dots and
Yeah.
like making it happen and finding each other, so.
Right, well, and that's like, with the community-wide reads. She's working with Clackamas Community College, people up there.
Downtown Association.
With the trivia, with
Yeah.
Danielle at Walsh at White Rabbit, the
Yeah.
Downtown Association. All these things, just like, they really have kind of reached that tipping point where it's happening more and more. And it's
Yeah.
just really all for the good of the library and the community. And
And
Jean's
the-
been doing a great job at it.
Thank you. Well, and the gal from the Alzheimer's Association just reached out to me again and was like, we haven't done a program for a while. Do you want to do it? And it's like, yes, I do, of course. So some of those relationships too are just like self-maintaining, which is wonderful. So yeah, programming is a beast, but
It is.
maintaining
But that
it.
reminds me, so trivia night is May 16th, and then
Yes.
there's gonna be a history pub,
Yes.
which we haven't done for a really long time, because the planning department actually reached out to us and said, would you like to partner with us? And that is
May 30th.
May 30th.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'll
so
be a
lots
midway.
of fun things coming up.
So you can drink and learn about rocks. It's gonna be great. I'm way too expressive for these microphones. I need a backup.
Yeah.
I'm gonna break something.
So anyway, any more questions?
Any more questions? No?
Awesome.
Well,
Great, thank you so much, Gina, I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
That wasn't too long.
No,
Oh
no,
my God, it was like half an hour.
no, it was fine.
Oh, it was great, thank
It's
you.
fine,
All right.
it's all
See you
good.
guys later.
All right, see you tomorrow. See you later.
All right, let's move on to item number 5, the library director's report.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see here. Okay, so, well, just going through this report, just real quickly, the floor transitions have really improved things. It's like the little things, isn't it, you know? So we had these metal transitions between the carpet and the wood in the foyer. And they were really noisy, and they were kind of like created this bump. Well, there's still a little bump there, but we now have rubber transitions, and it's smoother and so much more quiet. Like, especially for carts with books on them. So that's something we had to figure out that we needed changed. Bathroom issues, still are bathroom issues. We are struggling with bathroom issues. We have some ideas. We are starting to be able to do some staff stuff that we have talked about in the past. So actually, as of April 21st, we are going to have 3 32-hour-a-week positions move to 40 hours a week. Yeah, and then if our budget gets approved, I think I talked about this before, we have more on-calls that we are going to commit to different departments, like Gina's department and Barrett's department, so that they get the more help that they need. So that's going very, very well. March was a crazy month. It was spring break month. So we had almost 41,000 door counts, which, since I have all the statistics in front of me over the course of, years, I can look and say, the only times we've ever done that has been in August. So because of summer reading and everything else that happens in August. So there was just a lot of people in the building in March, and staff kind of, fortunately, it's National Library Week this week, so we can kind of treat staff to a few things, and make up for that, because they got kind of fried in March. Let's see, Gina, we talked about that workforce meeting that she went to. But also we sent 2 people to the OCBA luncheon, which is the Oregon City Business Alliance luncheon, and then we're sending 3 people in April to that luncheon, because if it's on a topic that relates at all, and it's this month it is on school to work preparation, work readiness. And so, we fit right in with work readiness, and we want to be like a player in that topic. So we're going to that. And it's also National Poetry Month. We have Kate Gray, who used to be an instructor at Clackamas Community College in the English department. She has a new book out, so she'll be coming. And then if you like history stuff, Karen Morey, our local history expert, will be doing Literary Ladies of Oregon City. And we're doing the Food for Fines that I gave you the thing of. And then the Lake Oswego, from their community-wide reads, they do an art exhibit. So they have artists who create art based on the topic or, the book in some way, shape, or form. And, I always forget the name of the book, something America. Dang it, I can see the picture. It's got a blue cover. No, I'm just kidding. And so we are lucky enough to have that art exhibit, and this for 1 month. And this is, I think, the 3rd year that we've been working with Lake Oswego to do that. So we can kind of count on that coming, and it's really nice to have. There's some great artists down there, and they do wonderful work. I wanted to mention to you that the State Library sent a new report that's all about how well libraries are meeting the standards. And that's something that we will talk about down the road, because we review the standards, public library standards, annually. But now this is kind of like their way of reporting to the state how they're supporting libraries in meeting the library standards. It's kind of this meta thing. So when we look at how we're doing, I can bring that report in, and it'll kind of have it all done for us in some respects, which is kind of nice. And, by the way, there is a new state librarian. Her name is Jennifer. I meant to look this up right before. It was just announced 2 days ago. So you may recall that the last state librarian, Mary Kay Dahlgreen, was kind of invited to leave about a year ago. They went through an interim process, and they now have replaced her with somebody who I believe is from Washington State. So that's going to be real interesting to see what that looks like. And they're also, at some point, I should get this legislation for you to look at. The Oregon Library Association is petitioning the state to change the definition of what a public library is, to make it harder to be a public library, so that a volunteer library that's strictly run by volunteers and has no governmental agency support whatsoever can't possibly be confused for a public library. It's not that those can't exist, that's fine, but there's a difference between a volunteer library like that and a public library, which is supported by, government funds, tax funds. And then I just included like a list of all the programs that have been happening, so you kind of get that overview once in a while of what takes place during a month. And, statistics look good. We are very busy. As you can see, over 40,500 at the door. Self-checks look great, circulation looks great, it was up. It was just a very busy month, so that's that in a nutshell. Any questions on the report?
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move right along to item number 6, budget update.
All right, Denise can help me with this. So today we had our overview of our budget with the city manager and the finance department. And we don't know exactly how this happens, but we look better than we thought we would look. There's a cushion in the personnel area. I'm not sure that it's enough for like a new full-time benefited position or anything like that. And in fact, I would like the next library director to be able to make that decision, because I think that next big position, if there's enough money for it, is gonna have to be really be carefully thought out, whether it's like an outreach person or what exactly is that position that's needed. It's gonna take quite a bit of work to figure out if indeed there is enough money for it, because as salaries go up and that kind of thing, there needs to be a good cushion in personnel, But I think it's, we'll do as much as we can right now. And in fact, we think that we can probably expand our hours a little bit in our next budget. At least get to 7 o'clock on Friday and Saturday nights, so that we're 7 o'clock, Thursday and Friday, so that we're 7 o'clock at least all the weekdays. Which at least would make it a little bit more consistent. But I would like to be like cautiously optimistic about what that cushion can do, and I'm not sure I'm the one that should be deciding that actually. So, because it takes a long time to figure out like best fit for what's needed. And honestly, our space is so tight with staff right now. Yeah, that's gonna be somebody else's problem, I think. But we're looking good, and we have beefed up like, all the places that we need to think we need to beef up on, like including more for electronic downloads, because that electronic downloads has a higher percentage of use now than regular books. So like the county kind of takes care of that for us as far as purchasing and stuff, and they're like, we just have this kind of pot of money that we all put into, and they're running out because it's kind of like an on-demand kind of system, how many copies that they, like, e-copies, which is like totally bizarre concept, but that's the way it has to be. They're running out like, 2/3 of the month, before the month even gets done, 2/3 through the month. So we need to definitely put more money into e-materials through the county, so that they can like meet this demand, this growing demand. It's not a bad thing at all, it's great, but that's kind of where the demand is growing. So beefing that up, beefing up staff training, our plan is to provide $1,000 a year for all of our full-time staff, to just say, here's $1,000, you decide where you think you want to like spend this on training. Our pre-processing, a lot of our books now are processed off-site before we even get to it, so that staff can focus on other things, but that costs more money, so that's kind of a trade. What else did we beef up? We also just decided today to put some money aside for the building for the future, although we have like a nice pot for capital improvements if we have to make them, like carpeting and that kind of thing. We decided to put money aside every single year for that, so that that can grow. So down the road, when there's big projects, we won't look like idiots and not have any money.
Teen books.
Teen books, yeah, teen books needed more money.
$2,000.
Yeah. So we feel like we are in really good shape this year. It's of course all based on estimates, the income of what's gonna come in from the district. But they predict a 3% increase every year, and every year that's been met, plus just a little bit more. So we should be in pretty good shape. And the city, at this point, looks like they will continue to give us the $150,000 a year that they've been doing. So that doesn't look like it's going away, although this is not final, this was just a review with the city manager, so. Yeah,
Any questions?
I had a question.
sure.
With the electronic materials, I'm still a little bit confused. Because I know that there's a check and check out, like for ebooks.
Right.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, and downloadable ebooks and audiobooks.
So let me see, how does that work? I know that there's like if you have an ebook, it's still limited in terms, you have to do check and check outs.
Right,
There's a certain number on the shelf in a sense, the electronic shelf.
right.
maybe? Is that
Yep.
correct? Okay, so the process works the same, but do you buy those on a per use basis then?
Well, what I think is, what happens is, this happens for all of our books, and actually all of our items. We will get a report that's, talks about holds compared to actual copies of things. And so like, we're supposed to keep a specific ratio, and it's just, this is an internal agreement that we have made to try to keep the wait time down for people, right? So we try to do the same thing for ebooks that we do for regular hard copy books. Like if there's a lot of holds for an something, it's the same thing as if it was a hard copy. So Catherine up at Network, she will go and try and buy more copies if she's got the money. So it kind of just depends on demand. And demand is determined through holds.
So
Right. Got
so
that
with
right?
the ebooks, you are buying the book.
Yeah, you actually have to buy the book.
So it's not on a per use basis then. It's based on the fact that you have the book you bought the ebook. It's like.
Right, but it can only be checked out one-to-one.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the same concept as a hard copy book.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I was trying to.
The only
understand.
thing that's different is that at the end of the checkout period, it just goes away. It just goes away from your tablet or whatever you have it on.
Right.
Right, you don't have to return it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know, it's a strange concept because it's like, it's it can be copied infinitively, right, or, indefinitely. But publishers have made life very hard for libraries in this area,
Right.
yeah. And they're more expensive too, than regular books. Yeah,
Thanks.
Any more questions? Okay, we'll move on to item 7, the Technology Assistance Policy Review.
okay. So, we were having a meeting one day and somebody pulled out this technology assistance policy. It's when we were talking about the technology, assistance that we're currently providing, because that, has gone through a little bit of an evolution. And I'm like, that's got the word policy on it, doesn't it? I think the library board should see this. Because this was created in an effort to define for patrons what we will not do for them, so that they won't get like all excited when we won't do everything for them. Because people will come in and they're just like, I can't do this. And it's like, we're not, we don't want to touch your computer. That's your stuff. We don't want to get in there and be like manipulating all these things. So this was created in an effort to tell people what we can do for them and what we can't do for them. And so I kind of struggled with like, is it a policy? Is it a practice? What is it? And whatever we want to call it, I wanted you to be sure that you knew it existed and we're operating using this. And if you have any comments on it, I would love to hear it. Yes.
When I first looked at this, it wasn't clear to me that this technology assistance policy related to personal computers and use.
Oh, okay.
So, as I read through it, I better understand what you're talking about now. But I think somewhere along the line, it needs to be clarified that this policy addresses personal devices, not library, computers and that sort
Well,
of thing.
there's really, we won't do certain things on library computers either. You know, people would have us just do like everything for them if they could have it that way. And it's like, we will not get in there and manipulate their email and do this and that for them. Do you know what I mean? So it's not just limited to their personal, it's their personal usage, but it's not always their personal device.
That's what I thought when I read it.
Does
I
that
thought
make
it was,
sense?
I thought it was universal from the standpoint that they could be on a library. They want to set up a Gmail account or whatever.
Yeah.
They could do that on a library
Sure.
workstation.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, it's not limit, because the way I read it, it's basically you're focusing on applications.
Mm-hmm.
You're not doing any of the operating system kind of stuff.
Right.
You're only doing apps. So again, I thought it could be on either one, just what's described there.
Yeah. Does that make sense, Cynthia? Okay. But we could definitely do a better job of describing that, like right at the top in the very first sentence, we could describe that.
Yeah, if it says
Sure.
something about personal devices and, personal databases or emails or whatever, so that it was clear.
Sure.
But on the, front of it, it looks a little bit, unfriendly. if you're
Yeah, I
not
know, but it's-
Understanding that
yeah.
you're talking about personal email and personal this and that and the other.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think things that say what we won't do is kind of like by nature unfriendly, but,
Yes.
but it kind of needs to be spelled out sometimes,
Yeah.
And if it's written down, that helps staff.
I mean, I thought from a scope standpoint, it's pretty good.
Okay.
What I understand.
Any other comments, questions? And we don't need to.
I don't think so, because I
Okay.
really think this is more a practice than a policy.
No. All right, let's move on to number 8, the library district big task force process.
Yeah, and this is that document that didn't print out well. So as Nick and I have been telling you, the library district, out of meetings from the Library District Advisory Committee, LDAC, which we both go to, this effort to, kind of review the IGA, the intergovernmental agreement, and kind of to talk about some of the things where we foresee some future problems. And really honestly, a lot of this came out of funding issues that we see coming up in the future, and as well as governance. Like, governance has been like this huge rub. So like, we want to be like, provide consistent services. So children's fines is a perfect example of governance, where we get into an area of governance. So let's just say, like, we make, let's say, $15,000 a year collecting on fines that come from children's books. And let's just say, like many other places in the country, Oregon City said, we just don't think that's fair. That's a barrier that like children shouldn't have to like deal with, because it's not, they're not responsible, and it's usually not their fault, and we want to get rid of that barrier. So we're going to do away with fines for children's books. And I could just provide you with all kinds of information about that you probably would find really compelling and interesting, and go, you know what, it's worth the loss of the income to make it so children, that, there's no fines on children's books. Unfortunately, that would be a decision that would need to be made by everybody in the entire consortium, because we're all on one system. We're all on one integrated software system. And so we can't have like a gazillion different decisions about something like that that's so integral. And so my city manager, my library board, they might say, that's a great idea and we really support that concept. But like, let's just, West Lynn, for instance, and now they would probably say yes too, but let's just pick on them. That city manager might say, oh, no. First of all, I think it's morally wrong, reprehensible. Children should be responsible. And secondly, we need the money. I mean, there are arguments that can be made, you know? And so then we like don't get to do anything because there's not agreement on things like that. So there's a bunch of topics out there like that directors go back and forth on and try to guess what their city manager or their library board will say. And it's kind of like, what are those topics that, you know, when it comes to money, I don't think we're ever gonna pull those decisions away from city managers. But they hold up progress for other cities, what some cities might call progress. So you see, we lock horns on a lot of things and finally got to the point where we just said, we need to sit down and talk about some of these things and bring some real world examples to the table and bring some city managers to the table so that maybe they could see like a different point of view or whatever. And I don't know if we're gonna make progress on it or not. That's just one of the areas. So that's governance. Who gets to decide what about who, you know, about a certain entity. Funding, I think that, what is our rate? 33 cents per thousand?
39.5.
39, thank you. I knew that didn't sound right. 39 cents per thousand is not a sustainable rate. So we might need to go back out and do a whole nother district thing. I don't know what that would look like. And then services, what do all of us think that are the services that should be provided by every single library in the county? So those are the three big areas, and this is an effort to kind of describe how we would get through those conversations and what the goals would be. So Greg Williams, who was recently promoted out of library network job to, what is he, assistant director of BCS, which is Building and Community Services, something like that. That's one of the big divisions of the county, but library falls under it, so he's still involved. He's the, he will continue to be involved in this and he will see this move forward. And what he really just wants to do is he wants to be really, really transparent about what the process could look like. And he wants feedback from as many people as possible. So he asked directors to put this in front of their library boards. And the city manager's already seen this, and we're actually gonna have a conversation with Greg and the city manager, and Nick, if you can make it, did you get my phone call?
Yes, I did. I
Great,
will be there.
on Friday. Just so that, my city manager, who's a fabulous guy, has every opportunity to ask as many questions about this before we go into it as possible. So that's kind of, you know, that's where we are. It's like, if you have no comments, that's absolutely fine. But if you have any comments, that's great too, because we're just looking for feedback here on, this is gonna be a tough process. And just logistically speaking, it's gonna be kind of crazy.
A lot of people
A
involved.
lot of
I mean,
people in the
it's-
room, yeah,
there-
and
you're
it's
talking
gonna be a lot of herding cats, you know?
25 people, you know, getting
Yeah.
together. It's gonna be interesting. But just to add to what Mo is saying, from a background standpoint, the library district was set up in 2008. So we've been operating under the same master agreement and IGA, with the exception of the 3 amendments since that time. And so in my 1-year experience of being on the LDAC, there are things that come up, and a lot of it are, you know, questions about from the funding standpoint, and also how funds are being spent by libraries, which that is, you know, there's independence, yet there are direct, you know, there are guidelines that you have to meet according to the IGA. So I mean, it's kind of, there's a lot of muddy type things out there from that standpoint. And so this is really an effort to, as Mo was saying, to try to get this, as many things out as possible and just see if what's been established 10 years ago, you know, still is relevant and makes sense. I'm sure the vast majority of it is that way, but there's probably other things that might be able to be addressed.
Any thoughts?
This is quite the intimidating
I know it is, isn't it?
project.
Yeah.
Getting through this.
Oh, it's super intimidating, and it's gonna go on a long time. And then one thing I regret about the timing of my retirement is that I'll probably leave like partway through this, you know, and so,
It's about 1.5 years.
yeah, it's
So
gonna take some
it's-
time,
That's definitely gonna take some time.
yeah.
What do you need from the library board?
If you don't have any comments or any feedback, I don't need anything.
Okay.
But this was just an opportunity for you to like be a little bit more informed about what is out there, what's going on, the direction we're heading in. And just to be like really transparent, and if if you don't have any comments tonight, that's absolutely fine. If you have some later, that's absolutely fine too. You can just get back to me
It's
individually.
a lot to, since we couldn't look at it, some of us couldn't look at it.
I
ahead of
know,
time, you
yeah, and
so-
it's a lot to absorb in like 10 seconds sitting here. So yeah, that's why I wanted to be sure that you could take home a printed copy of it. And you can just, if you have any thoughts at all, you can just email me directly, and that would be fine too.
We'll get regular updates at
Yeah,
that meeting.
oh my gosh,
yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, we actually didn't meet this past in March, and we'll be meeting in April, and
Yeah, pretty
this
soon.
is the primary topic on the agenda, I'm sure, is to try to get agreement. Because that, I mean, this approach is being debated also.
Yeah, this is a draft. but-
Yes,
okay.
exactly,
All right.
it's all a draft.
That's quite the impressive project.
Well, Greg is quite the
Yeah,
impressive guy.
yeah.
Yeah, and, the thing kind of grew too, because when you started thinking about, like, well, we should talk about a new, funding level, and then it's like, well, we need, if we're gonna get more money, we need to be really clear on like, well, where is it gonna go? Like, for instance, what are the central office, what services is it best for them to perform? And do we all agree on that? For instance. So,
I mean, the other thing that is interesting is that the central operation is actually provided through general funds from the county.
yes,
So those are not, they're separate from, they're still, in a sense, supporting the library district, but those funds are through general funds.
yeah, and the county has committed to that, and they actually have done a fantastic job of committing to that. So,
And their operation I don't see how a lot of it would work without that central
oh,
operation.
well, I mean, you've been up there,
Impossible.
some of you have seen the big automated materials handler last year, remember? It's huge, like without that, I mean, we would be going back to like dark ages time is what it would feel like, how we used to do things, so they're a critical partner,
Yeah.
they're really good.
Any more comments or any questions? We'll move on then to item 9, communications. Ken, do you have a Friends of the Library meeting?
Yes, we did. Of course, we all know that they're moving to the new location, which is just a block up the hill from the library. Things are going pretty well, pretty much as they expected. They do have a number of things they're trying to sell, excess equipment, and they would like people to go by there and look at it and see if they want it. They have bookshelves, they have, well, let's see my list here. Some bookcases. They got a wooden table, they got a metal table, they got 4 old wooden chairs, they've got some metal chairs that aren't too good, and a few other items they'd like to have somebody come up and buy or make a bid on anyway.
You said bookcases?
Yeah, and I haven't seen them. but
Okay.
they're-
I've been
You
looking.
go to they're in the old
I'm sure they selected the best ones that they have.
stuff down there.
Yeah, but Scott, you
They're
should
still
call
possible.
them, Ken's got the number of
Yeah.
the person to
Yeah,
call.
Yeah, you can call.
Walk down there.
If you're interested, I have the phone number, and her name is Louise Davis. And of course, it's 503-650-8499. And she'll gladly find a way to sell you something.
All right, Cynthia, you were at the Library Foundation, or?
We did not meet,
didn't meet,
our last
okay.
meeting, and we're meeting next week, and the priority still remains in, finding out more about the Dolly Parton Imagination Project. So I'll have more to tell you next time.
Okay,
Everybody was sick last month.
and Nick, you said you didn't meet?
We didn't meet, but I think you got the update.
Yeah. All right, and thank you again, Nick, Cynthia, and Ken for taking on that extra responsibility. And
Also, I have little addition to that, they're doing quite well. They made more money this past year than they did previous year. So
Excellent.
close
Yeah.
to $10,000 more, so.
And when's their,
They
bookstore?
plan on opening it on the 15th.
Oh, that's right, okay.
The grand opening is on the 23rd at 5:30, or
Yeah.
that's the ribbon cutting.
The ribbon cutting.
Ribbon cutting.
Yes,
And then May 1st is the grand opening. So soft opening, April 15th, they think they'll be able to meet that. Ribbon cutting on April 23rd at 5:30, and then grand opening on May 1. I know. And they also said how fantastic B&B leasing was.
They were, I was there on Friday morning,
Were you?
and they were,
Yeah.
it would have been impossible without them.
Yes.
I mean, they had 4 guys, and they were hustling, and
Yep.
there was a lot of stuff
They-
moved in that
yep.
short period of time.
They raved about it, so they're
It's a great
very,
company, great CEO.
I kind of like her.
The other thing with the bookstore is that they have a 10-year lease, which when you think
Oh, that's
about
good.
not having to worry about that. for a period
Oh, I
of
didn't
time.
realize that. 10 years, that's fantastic.
good.
Good. It'll be nice having them so close to the library. A block makes a difference. Oh,
All right, we'll move on to item 10, future agenda items. Is there any future agenda items or unfinished or new business?
I wanted to remind everybody that in May, we're gonna meet at the library.
Right,
So, when you get there, I've reserved the conference room upstairs for us. We will be touring, and then Aaron and Katrina, Aaron is our ITPR person, and Katrina is our circulation volunteer person. So it's probably gonna be, that will probably take a while. Maybe we'll cut down on the rest of our business.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, any other new business? All right, since there is no further business, this meeting is adjourned.